Hey there, Seb Frey the Realtor here. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of the biggest landmines in real estate that could end up costing you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars when you go to sell your home. If you want to find out what this landmine is and how you can avoid stepping on it, then you definitely want to watch this video. So the other day, I was watching some other realtor's YouTube channel, and in this one video, there was a comment from a lady named Colleen, and Colleen told a story about how she felt she had been ripped off to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars by her agent when she sold her home. She had had her home on the market for several months and hadn't received any offers. Then out of the blue, the listing agent brings her an offer that the agent herself had written. That is to say that the agent was also representing the buyer in addition to representing Colleen, the seller. Now, Colleen says that the offer was really a lowball offer, but she felt that the agent was coercing her into accepting it, telling her that this was probably the best offer that she was ever gonna get and she should probably take it. Well, Colleen did take the offer, and then the property did close escrow, but then a couple of months later, Colleen comes to learn that the buyer was actually a friend of the listing agent, and she felt that it was really representing the buyer's interests over her own interest, and she obviously was very upset about that. Now, dual agency is obviously a hot topic in the real estate industry. There's a lot of agents who will never represent both buyer and seller, and a lot of buyers and sellers who would never want an agent to represent both of them in a single transaction. Now, I'm going to explain to you what exactly dual agency is. Hey, before I get any further, would you do me a favor? Would you mash that subscribe button right there and subscribe to my YouTube channel? And don't forget, click that little bell to make sure that you get a notification every time I put up a brand new, fun, fact-filled video, kind of like this one. So, dual agency, what is it? Well, dual agency is where there's a single agent and they represent both the buyer and the seller. But that's not exactly true. Dual agency exists when a single brokerage represents both buyer and seller. Now, I work for Compass, which is the largest real estate brokerage in the United States by dollar volume, but it is also the largest real estate brokerage in Silicon Valley. So it's actually fairly common when I, as a Compass listing agent, represent the seller, that another Compass agent will come along and they will represent a buyer. Now, I have had a number of clients say, hey, I see that the buyer's agent is also a Compass agent and that this is now technically a dual agency relationship. How is it that Compass can fairly represent both the buyer and the seller? And to that I say, well, Compass and the agents still have the same fiduciary responsibility to each party. They need to make sure that they are looking out for the interests of each party every step of the way. So whether it is the brokerage and two different agents that are representing both the buyer and the seller, or one agent from that brokerage representing both buyer and seller, the brokerage still has the fiduciary responsibility to each party. That doesn't change. In California, dual agency is completely legal, and that is because in California, they do not view the sale of real estate as an adversarial relationship. It is not buyer against seller. It is buyer and seller who have the same goal, which is the transfer and sale of the property from one party to the other party, and those are not seen as, winner and loser, not us versus them. It's two parties who are coming together to effect a mutually satisfactory business arrangement. So now, while it is legal in California, it is not legal in all states, and I'm sure there are very good reasons that it is not legal in all states, but in California, it is legal, and it does happen from time to time. Now, I myself, I have sold, I think, somewhere around 450 properties in my career, somewhere-ish, and in that time, 22 years, I have represented both parties, I don't know, a handful of times. I want to say now it might be 6 or 7 times, so maybe 1 to 1.5% of the transactions I've done, I have represented both parties. Don't do it a lot, could do it under the right circumstances, but it is not part of my daily practice, and it is not something that I ever seek to do, but sometimes it just works out that way, and each time that I have represented both buyer and seller, it has worked out very well, I think, to the advantage of both buyer and seller. Now, you may be saying, well, it is legal, but is it ethical? Very good question. Well, actually, as a realtor, I subscribe to the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics. And all realtors subscribe to the Code of Ethics, or they're supposed to subscribe to it anyway. And I don't know what you think about the National Association of Realtors. I kind of like them, and I certainly do really like the Code of Ethics because it keeps all realtors sort of of operating within a framework that we can all count on and enforce. Now, the Code of Ethics does permit dual agency. It says that when a realtor is representing both the buyer and the seller, the realtor must be fair and honest and transparent with all parties. They cannot favor one party over the other party, and that they have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the interests of both parties are represented and respected. In the few times when I have acted as a dual agent, I have not really had any kind of a problem with it, because I understand my goal is to act as a conduit for communication between the buyer and the seller to make sure that each party's position is transmitted clearly and effectively to the other party, and that each party understands their rights and obligations under the terms of the contract, and that they are obligated to negotiate and operate in good faith. And in the few times that I have actually represented both parties, there have been no hitches, because simply by making sure that everybody understands what they need to do, what they can do, and what would be fair to them and fair to the other party, there haven't really been any problems. Now, of course, in any transaction, there could be problems. There could be a closing delay, there could be some kind of repair issue, and navigating that when you are a dual agent, there is an extra level of responsibility to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and that the communication is absolutely crystal clear. But when you are very experienced as a realtor, you know how to handle these situations when they do come up. And again, it all comes down to being clear and consistent in your communication, being transparent and being fair and honest, and making sure that each party understands, again, their rights and obligations under the contract. And when they do, if both parties want the same thing, if they still want to affect the sale and the transfer of the property, it's still going to happen, because that is really the key ingredient in any transaction, dual agent or not, and that is that both parties still want the same result. And that is why when acting as a dual agent, even when these issues may arise, although they never have arisen in any of the few transactions that I've done, I think that there is no reason why a dual agent can't successfully navigate and get those two parties to come together, stay on the same page, and achieve the same goal which they're both looking for. But the real landmine is not dual agency. Listen, Colleen felt that she got burned by her realtor because the realtor was acting as a dual agent. But if you ask me, the real problem was that she did not trust her realtor. If you can't trust your realtor to also represent the buyer, how can you trust them to represent you? You need an agent who is 100% trustworthy, because let's face it, selling your house is probably the single biggest financial transaction that you will ever be a part of. And you need to make sure that you are working with an agent who you can absolutely 100% trust. And if you can't, then probably you should not be doing business with that person in a transaction that is going to be so consequential. But how do you know if you can trust your agent or not? Well, one way is to get a referral from somebody that you trust. If that person swears up and down that that realtor is a trustworthy individual, then that certainly is a good indicator that the realtor will be trustworthy. But I think probably the biggest way to test if a realtor is trustworthy or not is see if that realtor is lying to you. Many realtors, hate to say it, they exaggerate and they tell their clients or prospective clients things that are not actually true. And if you are interviewing an agent and your BS detector starts going off, like that realtor is like blowing smoke up your keister, then probably that is a red flag. That is a warning sign that that realtor is not completely trustworthy. You want to have a feeling when you're talking to a realtor that that person is telling you the whole plain and unvarnished truth. And if you ever get the feeling that your realtor is being less than trustworthy with you, then you need to take a step back and think, really, should I be working with this realtor at all? Because if you can trust your realtor to represent you on the sale of your house, that means that you need to have a really high level of trust. And if you're asking me, that same level of trust should extend to the realtor's ability to represent the buyer as well, because the realtor is there to help you effect the transfer and sale from you to the buyer. The realtor should be able to represent both parties fairly, professionally, equally, and transparently. And if you don't feel that your realtor is up to that, you probably should not be working with that realtor at all. And if you ask me, that is simply put the biggest landmine in real estate, whether your realtor is being a dual agent or a single agent. If you can't trust your agent, you stand to lose tens or possibly even hundreds of thousands of dollars when you go to sell your home. You must absolutely be able to trust your realtor with the single biggest financial transaction portion of your life. Alright, well that is all I have for this video. I hope you did enjoy watching it, and if by any chance you did, I'm guessing you might also enjoy some of these videos over here. These are some of the most popular videos here at my YouTube channel, so please do take a look. Alright, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and please stay tuned.